Coming up on Mountain News this morning, the demand for COVID-19 tests sees a spike after the holiday weekend. And health officials urge people here in the Commonwealth to seek treatment if infected with the virus.
Dedicated to Eastern and Southern Kentucky, this is WYMT Mountain News this morning.
Good morning, I'm Chas Gayhart. It is 4:59 on Wednesday, December 29th. Let's go over and check in with Brandon. And you were not kidding when you said yesterday that it was going to rain.
Yeah, indeed it is. And it's continuing to rain this morning. It was raining heavily at your house.
It was
when
pouring.
You left, and then it was raining heavily at my house when I was getting ready. So yeah, so it's coming down out there in spots. But the good news is the heavier bands are starting to move out. Let's take a look at the last few hours on the satellite and radar loop, and you'll be able to see that coming down pretty good. You can see in parts of Perry and Knott counties, and then over into parts of the Cumberland Valley along the border counties there with Virginia. Again, coming down pretty good out there this morning. It's moving into Virginia out of southeast Kentucky this morning, so that's some good news. A couple little heavier bands there down into parts of East Tennessee, Middle Tennessee there, south of Monticello and south of Stearns in McCree County there. So just kind of keep that in mind this morning, and everything kind of drying out for the moment. Temperatures, Pikeville out this morning. We've got 60s down to the south there, Jacksboro, Middlesboro, and Jonesville. I will say this, though, about Jacksboro. They were at 70 a little earlier this morning, which was warmer than any of us got yesterday. 68 was the official high, but you see the further north you go, the cooler it is. But everybody's still in the 50s for the most part this morning. Those winds coming in and out of the southwest again, 13-mile-an-hour sustained speed in Jonesville and Wise, and you factor in the gust. Not too bad there as well, 17 in Harlan at the moment. Weather app forecast for today, the rain chances back and forth throughout the day. Now, is it going to rain all day? Probably not. Or could you see some sunshine at times like we did yesterday? Absolutely. But I do think overall showers are in the forecast, both early this morning for sure, and then later tonight as well. And in the middle, some scattered shower possibilities there as well. Chas?
Thank you, Brandon. A Boyd County congregation is salvaging what they can after a bad fire Sunday night. Fire officials say it started after a driver crashed into God's Direction Church. Police believe the driver was under the influence at the time. Fire crews say a portion of the church is a total loss, but the pastor says they were able to salvage a few pictures and a plaque of the Ten Commandments.
It actually just feels like you're kind of like in an old dream, like, you know, it's kind of like you just can't believe it. My first thing was just speechless. My wife, she started crying about it, and just, you know, it's just a lot of questions, you know, you kind of wonder about things, but I believe there's a bigger thing to it, you know, than this.
The Boyd County Sheriff's Office says the driver has been arrested. The pastor says they will rebuild what was damaged. The deadline is less than a month away for business in Eastern Kentucky to apply for disaster loans, following historic flooding back in March. A number of counties are eligible for the Small Business Administration's Economic Injury Disaster Loans. January 24th is the last day to apply. Governor Andy Beshear reported yesterday that the Commonwealth reached the highest number of COVID cases and positivity rates since September. The state reported 4,297 new cases, bringing our case total to 850,632. We had 23 new deaths as well, putting the Commonwealth's death toll at 12,097. The positivity rate is now more than 12.5%. It currently sits at 12.61%. You can always find the latest COVID-19 information on our website at WYMT.com. Following the holiday weekend, there is a spike in the demand for COVID-19 testing across the nation. The trend is being felt at primary care centers of Eastern Kentucky. Doctors say that staff are prepared, mostly because they have dealt with numerous waves following holidays before. If you're on the fence about getting a test, you're not alone.
I actually just got off the phone with another family. Everybody's coming in for testing. Everyone has symptoms after their family get together at Christmas.
Right now, officials are only recommending testing for people who are symptomatic or have a confirmed close exposure to someone who is symptomatic. If previous holidays are any indication, there is likely an increase in COVID-19 cases right around the corner. Public health officials want people to remember that the monoclonal antibody infusion is a very promising treatment. However, it's most effective if pursued early into infection, and some people may not even be discussing that option with doctors.
If you do contract COVID, contact your healthcare provider. Some people are just getting tested and then they're having severe symptoms and they know they've got COVID, but they're not talking to the primary doctor because they're getting tested at another site.
Some people may be looking for the antiviral pills, but Lockard says they are all still in testing and a ways off from being available to the general public. During these pandemic times, you might be concerned about what you might have, COVID-19 or the flu. There are entire pages for the CDC's website dedicated to similarities between COVID-19 and the flu. They can both start with the usual: fever, chills, muscle pains, plus a runny nose, cough, and sore throat. Bottom line, doctors are saying there is really no way to tell them apart. They do recommend that if you think you are exposed, it's time to get tested.
If a person thinks they've been exposed, then they need to be tested. If a person starts having symptoms, and again, you can't really tell, it's very difficult to tell the difference. At that point, I recommend getting tested.
CDC officials say the flu comes on much more quickly. Symptoms appear just 1 to 4 days after infection. With COVID, it could be 5 days, or 2 days, or 14 days, and any time in between. A boil water advisory in Fort Gay, West Virginia has been lifted after more than 9 months. Those water customers were first notified of the advisory back on March 22nd. A representative for the town says the advisory was put in place as a precaution just in case a lift station in need of repair malfunctioned. Water was still treated just the same, and now the repair is complete. The governor's office says during this year, the Kentucky Small Business Tax Credit Program has allowed the creation of 339 new jobs and more than $3.6 million in investments in 107 businesses across the state. The average pay for the new jobs is close to $26 an hour. The small business program provides incentives to companies with 50 or fewer employees to hire workers and invest in new equipment and technology. Some tax preparers call 2021 the year of the child. It all stems from those child tax credits some of you received monthly starting back in July. Those payments are not counted as income in 2021, but you must reconcile those payments when you file your 2021 tax return. But before you file your taxes in 2021, Dana Overall, a 30-year certified public accountant, has some advice.
If you had children in daycare, most likely you are going to see a favorable result when you file your taxes for 2021.
Overall also says if you have a child born as late as December 31st of this year, you still get that entire $3,600 child tax credit. And thanks for getting your day started with us here on Mountain News this morning. When we come back, a town in Colorado now has a second mayor, but only one of them can be deemed man's best friend.
That's some doggone cute video there. Showers and storms are rolling through the region right now, but will we get a small break later today? I'll have the latest on that and what we could see later this week in about 3 minutes.